It's been nearly 10 years since 20-year-old Easton native DJ Henry was killed by a police officer in Mount Pleasant, New York. But this week, a slew of high-profile celebrities are calling for the Department of Justice and New York State to reopen his case. DJ was waiting for a friend outside a bar in the fall of 2010 when a police officer told him to move his car. As he did, another officer, Aaron Hess, jumped on the car's hood and fired his gun through the windshield. Police dashcam video obtained by CBS's 48 Hours showed that after DJ was shot, he was handcuffed face down on the sidewalk. And while people helped Officer Hess, DJ lay completely alone, dying. Hess later claimed DJ tried to run him over, but another police officer, Ronald Beckley, later said he thought Hess was the aggressor at the time. It's unclear whether a grand jury ever heard that information, but they decided not to press any criminal charges against Hess, and just a few weeks later, his union named him Officer of the Year. In August of 2011, Kanye West and Jay-Z dedicated a song to DJ Henry, implying his death was a murder. And now, Jay-Z, Rihanna, and several other celebrities are taking things a step further, writing a letter to Attorney General William Barr saying, quote, even a cursory review of the fact pattern of what occurred distills more questions than answers. They go on to call on Barr to reopen the case and, quote, probe the wrongful death of Danroy DJ Henry, as they put it. The facts support this request. The law all but requires it, and justice, it demands it. The letter was co-signed by Pharrell Williams, Charlize Theron, Taraji P. Henson, Odell Beckham Jr., Michael K. Williams, Kerry Washington, Mary J. Blige, and Gabrielle Union. And others are taking up the cause as well, pushing for the state of New York to take another look.
My friend Angela Henry, her son, 10 years ago was shot. His name's DJ Henry. And the hashtags DJ Henry or Justice for DJ Henry, they're right now trying to open the case back up. And so I'm really hoping that New York decides to reopen his case and hold the officer accountable who shot him for no reason.
A Change.org petition calling on New York State officials to reopen an investigation has gotten more than 62,000 signatures in just the 2 weeks since it was posted. I'm joined now by DJ's father, Danroy Henry Sr. Dan, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
You as well, thanks.
How did this high-profile crusade seeking justice for DJ come about, Dan?
Honestly, Jim, I'm not sure it's about... It really, for us, is about how it came about. It's that it came about. And frankly, there are a number of people, some with celebrity status, some without, who have been leaning into this moment and recognize that, this is the time when we should finally get answers to the questions we've been asking all along.
Is the argument that there's new evidence that wasn't appropriately considered by the U.S. Attorney or by the District Attorney in Westchester County, or is the argument that the evidence that existed was not thoroughly enough examined and fairly enough examined by the authorities?
It's a bit of both. So the evidence, while it's not new by time frame, because we've known it now for several years, it was new relative to the grand jury case. And so in New York, as the viewers may not know, in New York, the grand jury testimony is essentially put into a locked box. It's kept secret until recently. That law was recently changed. So we don't know what was taken to the grand jury. But what we think was taken was the false narrative that the township later apologized for advancing. What we found out later were things like Ronald Beckley gave an honest account of what happened that night, but we don't know if his testimony was considered. We don't know. What we think was submitted to evidence to the grand jury was a false statement, that it wasn't his true statement. So either show us that or reopen the case.
But on the federal level, while the DA in Westchester County was riddled with problems, including allegedly having relatives on the police force, a whole host of nightmares, Preet Bharara, who's one of the most respected former U.S. attorneys Obama appointed, was in charge of the investigation there. Is the suggestion that he wasn't as thorough as he should have been either?
Well, we're asking that question of everyone who had an opportunity to indict and didn't. So that's why, asking the federal level folks to look at it as well as the state level people is important to us.
Dan, I want to read for the viewers a little portion of the letter that was sent by those people I mentioned a minute ago. DJ, a young black youth with a bright future ahead of him, was killed for no apparent reason inside his own vehicle. The facts of the case reek of local conflict of interest, racial bias, even false testimony. But like so many other unarmed and innocent young black men who find themselves guilty of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, DJ too lost his life for no good reason, with absolutely no good explanation. To this very day, justice, it appears, has been denied. Is it fair to say, in the many, many times I've spoken to you and your wife, Angela, you have hesitated to suggest that you believe the shooting was race motivated? Is that a fair characterization of your position?
Well, we don't know why Hess shot our son, and he gives us no good explanation for it. So I don't know why he did it. I don't know why he did it. Did race play a part in how DJ was treated afterwards? It may have. It may have. But we don't know why Hess did what he did. There's no good reason for him to have run into the roadway shooting at our son. And whether he says it was racially motivated or not, his actions still stand. He killed our son, and we think it was unlawful, and as a result, it was murder.
You know, we should be clear, it's not simply the rich and famous and socially driven souls who are campaigning for your kid. We're watching CNN. This is a protest in New York City just a week after George Floyd was killed, June 2nd, when a woman who identified herself as Jane Doe was interviewed live holding a DJ Henry sign. Here's part of what she had to say.
People see that people like this, DJ Henry, are important. George Floyd was important. Trayvon Martin was important. Mike Brown was important. These people are all important. For 10 years, we've been fighting the same fight. 10 years of my adult life, I have been saying justice for insert name. It's been too long, and it's been longer than my 10 years. It's just too much.
How'd that make you feel when you saw that?
Powerful. It's a powerful moment. It's a powerful moment, but I think it's a powerful moment in our country. I hope it leads to healing. But I love that young people are so activated. And you know, I think it's time for those of us in positions of authority and power to follow their example and bend the arc back towards justice.
Well, I hope so. You know, 2 weeks after George Floyd was murdered, Angela was on CBS. And one of the things she said that really struck me was she says 10 years later, meaning 10 years after your son's life was taken, she said, quote, nothing has changed. Do you believe nothing has changed in 10 years? I know there are a lot of young people who've been gunned down by police and private citizens and all that kind of thing. But do you believe nothing has changed, Dan?
I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, I think it's overly broad. Things certainly have changed, some for the better, some for the worse. But I'm not sure that we have the sort of systemic change that we need to see achieved that prevents and people from acting outside of their duty-bound authority and that holds them accountable when they do. That hasn't changed, certainly not. And until it does,
are you hopeful, though? I mean, when you see legislatures apparently in some cases taking these issues seriously, when you see a movement that the New York Times described 10 days ago as maybe Black Lives Matter, maybe the largest movement in the history of the United States of America, does this give you hope that this time may be different than so many times that came before?
Well, as I say, I'm not overly hopeful. I'm encouraged, though, by the activation. I'm not looking for hopeful solutions. I'm looking for real action, and there are very specific things that need to be done legislatively by people who are courageous. And in our case, we just need someone to step up and agree that this needs a fair review. The criminality here needs a fair review in front of an impartial jury and in front of a fair prosecutor. It hasn't had that yet in 10 years. So it's hard for me to talk about, sort of the macro issues when at the micro level we still have this opportunity in front of us to do the right thing. We hope somebody will join us there.
On the micro level, I've asked you this many times before. I so admire the relentlessness of you and your wife and your kids seeking justice for DJ. But I've also said to you that every time you do, you've got to revisit the horrors of what happened to him. Are there moments when you say to yourself, let it be? People love this young man, those who knew him and those who have sadly only met him after he died. Are there those moments, or is this something that never ends until you get what you want?
Yeah, I mean, even if we get, we think about that, even if we get a prosecution, and that's what we're after, we want a conviction. We want the case reopened so that we can get to a conviction. It's a means to an end. We still have to deal with his absence, with the reality that we lost him. He's never coming back. So, yeah, I don't know that it's a reopening. It's never healed. These wounds are festering. So maybe after we get a conviction, we'll begin to deal with that in those, on those terms. But for now, it's been an open wound for 10 years.
I don't know if this is comforting, but I've also said to you, and I know I'm not alone in this, there are many people who didn't know DJ Henry who feel, based on the work that you and Angela and your kids have done, that we do know him, almost in an intimate way that is impossible to describe. And I'm glad to see you smile, because it makes me smile too, and only regret that I didn't know him in life. But this was 10 years ago. DJ would be a 30-year-old man now. Do you think of who he'd be, what kind of human he'd be as a 30-year-old inhabitant of this planet, Dan Henry?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, rarely a moment goes by when we don't think about that. We don't sort of project him into our present, because we never want to leave him behind. We don't want people to and we certainly don't just remember Danny because of how he died. We remember his life, and we try to project him into our present moment because he's still very much a part of us. And in some ways, he fuels us now. So we hope he's proud of what we're doing, and we hope in his way he's helping us.
Well, he fuels a lot of people now. Danroy Henry, thanks so much. Good luck with your work, and best to your family.
Thank you.
Danroy, Angela, and their family usually host an annual fundraiser for the organization they created in their son's honor, but they've postponed this year's event, obviously due to the pandemic. The new date will be Friday, October 29th of next year, 2021, which would have been DJ's 32nd birthday. You can find out more information about that and the organization itself at djdreamfund.org.